After 20 agonizing hours of labor, my body was exhausted, trembling from the sheer intensity of it all. I had just brought our daughter into the world, a moment that should have been filled with overwhelming love and relief. But instead, as I lay there, drenched in sweat, my body aching from the ordeal, my husband snatched the birth certificate from the nurse's hand with an air of absolute authority. "Our baby will have my mother's name, not yours," he declared, his voice firm, unwavering. At first, I thought I had misheard him. The room still felt like a blur. Nurses bustling around, the beeping of machines, my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I blinked up at him, trying to process his words. "What?" I croaked, my throat raw from screaming through contractions. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he was already scribbling something on the form, his pen moving swiftly, decisively. "We agreed on a name," I reminded him, my voice hoarse but firm despite my exhaustion. But then he did look at me, and what I saw in his eyes sent a shiver down my spine. That smirk, that arrogant, self-satisfied smirk, the one that told me he believed he had won, that my opinion didn't matter. "You don't get a say," he sneered. The words hit me harder than any contraction I had endured. Before I could respond, a nurse, a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes that had clearly seen too much, stepped closer. She glanced at me, then at my husband, her expression unreadable, and then, in a low whisper, she leaned in and asked, "Want me to tell him the truth?" My breath caught in my throat. The room, already cold, suddenly felt even colder. The truth? I turned my head toward her, my heart pounding, my mind racing. What truth? She held my gaze for a moment before flicking her eyes back to Mark. He was too busy with the paperwork to notice the way everything had shifted in that moment, too confident in his control over me to realize the foundation beneath him was cracking. I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" I whispered back. The nurse's expression darkened slightly. "Not here," she murmured. "But trust me, you need to know." A chill ran through me. For years, I had ignored my instincts. I had silenced that little voice inside me that told me something wasn't right. I had been the quiet, understanding wife, the one who compromised, who let things go, who made excuses. I had let Mark's mother trample all over my boundaries, had tolerated the endless criticisms, the condescending remarks, the outright dismissal of my feelings. I had endured it all, believing that love meant patience, that marriage required sacrifice. But this was the moment something inside me snapped. I forced myself to sit up, ignoring the pain that shot through my body. I had just brought life into this world, and I refused to let that life be shaped by a man who saw me as nothing more than a vessel for his mother's legacy. "You're not naming her after your mother," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Mark finally stopped writing. He turned his head toward me slowly, his expression unreadable at first. And then, as realization dawned, his face darkened. "Excuse me," he asked, his tone low, dangerous. "She is our daughter," I said through gritted teeth. "We agreed on a name. You don't get to change it without me." His jaw tightened, his fingers gripping the pen so hard I thought it might snap. For the first time in our 6-year relationship, I saw something in Mark I had never seen before, pure, unfiltered rage. "My mother," he started. "I don't care." I cut him off. "That did it." His face twisted into something ugly, something I couldn't even recognize. And in a voice so cold, so venomous, he spat out, "You don't get a say. You are nothing without me." The words settled between us, heavy and final. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about a name. This was about control, about the years of silent battles I had lost because I had chosen to be the peacemaker, because I had let him and his mother strip me of my voice. But not anymore. I turned back to the nurse, my decision made. "Tell me," I said, "tell me the truth." And as the words left my lips, I saw it. The moment Mark's world began to crumble. "After everything I've done for you," Mark sneered, his voice dripping with condescension, "you should be grateful I'm even letting you put your last name on the certificate." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the breath from my lungs. I felt like I had been punched. The room suddenly colder, my body rigid with shock. Beside me, the nurse inhaled sharply. "Oh, hell no," she muttered under her breath, her fingers tightening around the clipboard she held. But Mark wasn't finished. "If you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't have been so difficult during the pregnancy," he continued, his tone sharp, edged with irritation. "You had one job, to carry my baby. You don't get to decide things. That's my right." Something inside me cracked, shattered beyond repair. My hands clenched the hospital sheet, my heart pounding violently against my ribs. And then, something happened that I never expected. The nurse snatched the clipboard right out of Mark's hands. "You will not speak to her like that," she said firmly, her voice steady, unwavering. Mark's head snapped toward her, his face contorted with disbelief. "What the hell?" But she wasn't listening. She flipped the pages over, scanning them, her expression darkening with every second. Then she met his gaze with quiet fury. "You're lucky she doesn't know the whole story yet," she said coolly. And just like that, my stomach dropped. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine. I turned to Mark, searching his face. He had gone pale. "What is she talking about?" My voice was barely above a whisper. "Nothing," he said too quickly. "She's just lying." The nurse cut in before he could say anything else. "I don't think so." Mark's eyes flicked between us, his entire body tensing, a sheen of sweat beginning to form on his forehead. He looked like a man cornered. Then the nurse leaned down, lowered her voice, and whispered, "You should check the insurance records." It took me a second to process what she said, and then it hit me like a train. Mark had handled the insurance paperwork throughout my pregnancy. I had trusted him to take care of it. I never questioned it. Why would I? Unless I turned to him, my throat dry. "Mark, what did you do?" His hands clenched into fists. "Nothing." But his breathing had changed. He was nervous. The nurse exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "I've seen this before," she said. "Women come in thinking everything is fine, trusting their husbands to handle everything, and then they find out they're not even listed as the primary parent." I went cold. Mark shot up from his chair. "We're leaving?" I ignored him. "You changed my insurance records?" My voice was shaking now. "I did what I had to do," he snapped. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand." Silence. The nurse folded her arms. "Do you want me to pull the records?" "Because I can. Right now." Mark's face twisted into something darker. Rage, panic. Something else I couldn't name. "You're not doing this," he growled, turning to me. "You just gave birth. You're hormonal. You're not thinking straight." But I was thinking straight. And I knew, without a doubt, that it screwed me over. Then, suddenly, he grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm, like he was trying to force control back into his hands. "We're not doing this here." I yanked my arm away. "You don't control me." His jaw twitched, and for the first time I saw it. Real fear. Not anger. Fear. The nurse turned to me. "Do you want to see the records?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Mark let out a bitter laugh. "Fine. You want the truth? You were never supposed to see them." The room felt smaller, suffocating. The nurse gave me a look, then walked out. A few minutes later, she returned, a folder in her hands. She set it on my lap and opened it for me, and there it was. Mark had listed himself as the sole parent. My name was nowhere. I couldn't breathe. "You were planning to take her from me." Mark didn't deny it. A wave of nausea rolled through me. My fingers trembled as they traced the cold, damning words on the paper. "Mark." My voice barely came out. "What did you do?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking away. "You don't understand how hard this has been for me." My head snapped up. "For you?" He inhaled sharply, hesitated. Then finally he admitted, "My mom, your mom, she wanted to handle everything. She said," he stopped, swallowing hard. "She said what?" I demanded. Mark closed his eyes for a second, exhaled. "She said she knew what was best for the baby. That you were too emotional, too soft. That I had to take control." A sharp, ugly realization settled over me. "So you what? Took me off my own child's insurance? Made yourself the only legal guardian?" He didn't answer. That was all I needed to know. The nurse didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She just sat there, letting the weight of the truth settle around us. Mark's hands curled into fists. I was trying to do what was right. I stared at him, disbelief turning to something colder, stronger. "No," I said. "You were trying to steal my child from me." For the first time since this started, Mark looked genuinely afraid. The nurse's voice was firm, sharp as steel. "You're lucky I caught this," she said, eyes locked on Mark. "I've seen women lose custody of their own babies over things like this." Mark stood abruptly, his posture defensive, his jaw tight. "You're overreacting," he scoffed. I shook my head, my entire body trembling from exhaustion and rage. "I'm done." He laughed, an actual laugh, full of disbelief, like I was nothing more than a joke to him. "What? You think you can just leave?" His voice dripped with condescension. "You just had a baby. Where are you even going to go?" Before I could respond, the nurse placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, her stance protective. "She won't be alone." Mark's smirk faltered. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. That's when I knew his world was about to come crashing down. His expression twisted into a mix of fury and desperation. I could almost see the gears turning in his head, the frantic calculations as he searched for a way to regain control. He thought he could talk his way out of this, manipulate me like he always did. Not this time. I turned back to Nurse, my voice unsteady but determined. "What do I do now?" She studied me for a moment before asking, "Do you have family nearby? Someone you trust?" I did. My sister, Sophie. She lived about 30 minutes away. Unlike Mark, she actually cared about me. I reached for my phone, my fingers fumbling slightly as I tried to dial her number. But before I could press call, Mark lunged. He snatched the phone from my hands with a low growl. "You're not doing this." The nurse immediately stepped between us, her voice like a blade. "Give it back to her. Now." For a moment, Mark hesitated, his fingers gripping the device like a lifeline. Then, with a sneer, he tossed it onto the hospital bed. "You're making a mistake." I ignored him and picked up my phone, quickly pressing call button. Sophie answered on the second ring, her voice warm and familiar. "Hey, how are you? How's the baby?" I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. My throat felt tight, my emotions suffocating. If I spoke, I would break. The nurse gently took the phone from my trembling hands. "Hi, Sophie. This is Nurse Claire from the hospital. Your sister needs you here immediately." Sophie didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way." Mark let out a bitter laugh. "Really? You're running to your sister? She doesn't even like me." I shot him a glare, my voice colder than I thought possible. "Maybe because she saw through your bullshit before I did." His face darkened, his jaw clenching. "This is ridiculous." "No," the nurse snapped. "What's ridiculous is what you tried to do. And trust me, hospital staff talk. We don't take kindly to men who try to steal their wives' babies." Mark's fist clenched, but for once, he had nothing to say. I turned to the nurse. "Can we change the paperwork?" She nodded firmly. "Yes, and we're going to document everything. If he tries anything, there will be a legal trail." Mark stiffened beside me. "You're blowing this out of proportion." But he was sweating now. He knew he had lost control of the situation. Then his phone rang. At first, I barely noticed. But then I saw the name on the screen, Mom. And just like that, everything clicked into place. This wasn't just Mark. He hadn't done this alone. His mother was behind this. All of it. Mark quickly declined the call, but before he could shove his phone back into his pocket, I grabbed his wrist, my voice shaking with rage. "You're going to tell me the truth." "There's nothing to tell," he muttered. The nurse folded her arms, her expression unreadable. "You can either tell her now, or she'll find out when she checks the legal records. Either way, it's over." Mark's eyes flicked to me, then to the baby cradled in my arms. And for the first time, I saw something I hadn't expected. Guilt. Still, I needed to hear from his own mouth. "What did you do?" My voice was barely above a whisper. Silence. I reached for his phone, but he yanked it away. "Fine," he snapped. "You want the truth? My mother said I had to make sure the baby was legally under my name only. That way, if you ever tried to leave me, you wouldn't be able to take her." The room spun. My arms tightened instinctively around my daughter, my whole body shaking. "She said she could get me a lawyer," Mark continued, his voice bitter. "Told me the courts wouldn't favor you because you don't make as much money. That if I played it right, I could get full custody." My stomach twisted violently. His mother had been planning to rip my baby away from me before she was even born. And the worst part? Mark had gone along with it. I felt like I was going to be sick. "Why?" I whispered, my voice raw. "Why would you do this to me?" Mark rubbed a hand over his face, exhaling sharply. "Because you never respected my mother." The room went deathly silent. The nurse sucked in a sharp breath. "Oh, my God," she muttered under her breath. And I laughed, a cold, hollow laugh. "All of this," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "You tried to steal my child because I didn't worship your mother?" Mark didn't answer. He didn't need to. That was all I needed to know. The nurse turned to me, her expression resolute. "We're going to fix this. Right now." She grabbed my paperwork and strode out of the room, probably to get the hospital administrator involved. Mark took a cautious step toward me. "Look, this got out of hand. We can fix it." I held my daughter closer. My heart was pounding, but my mind had never been clearer. "There is no we anymore." His face twisted. "I am her." "You are nothing." I cut him off, my voice steady. "Not to me, not to her." And for the first time, Mark looked like he understood. He had lost. "Father and I am her mother." I shot back, my voice sharp with conviction. Mark's jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists at his sides. "You're making a mistake," he growled. "No," I said, standing my ground. My voice didn't waver. "The only mistake I made was trusting you." At that moment, Sophie walked in. She took one look at my face, at the barely restrained fury, at the devastation I was trying so hard to contain, and knew something was wrong. Her gaze flicked to Mark, then back to me, her body immediately tensing. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded. Before I could answer, Mark's phone rang again. The sharp, insistent chime cut through the heavy silence. This time, Sophie didn't hesitate. With quick reflexes, she snatched it right out of his hand before he could react. "Sophie, don't." Mark started, but she ignored him. Her eyes dropped to the screen, and I saw her expression shift. It wasn't just a call from his mother. There were messages, lots of them. Her fingers moved swiftly, unlocking his phone. Of course, she knew his passcode. She always knew everything. But the moment she scrolled through the messages, she went pale. She turned the screen toward me, her lips parting in shock, and my stomach dropped. The words on the screen blurred together for a moment before they sharpened into razor-edge clarity. "I can't wait to see you. Once the baby is here, we can finally be together. She won't have anything left. She'll be stuck." My breath caught in my throat. My fingers went numb. The phone trembled in Sophie's grip as rage filled her eyes. "Are you?" She sucked in a sharp breath, her voice rising. "Fucking kidding me?" Mark's face turned white. His lips parted as if he was about to speak, to spin some lie, to weave some excuse. But I wasn't looking at him anymore. My eyes were locked on the screen, my vision swimming as I scrolled. He hadn't just cheated. This wasn't a fling. This was a relationship, a planned, deliberate betrayal. And it wasn't just about infidelity. It was calculated. That one text. "She won't have anything left. She'll be stuck." Hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about me. This was about control. He planned to trap me, to take my baby, to strip me of everything, my autonomy, my choices, my future. He wanted to push me into a corner where I had nothing left, so he could leave with someone else. I felt like I was drowning, my heart beat a deafening roar in my ears. My body, still weak from labor, trembled. I held my newborn daughter in my arms, her tiny body warm and safe against my chest, completely unaware that the man who was supposed to protect her had already betrayed her before she had even opened her eyes. I turned to Mark, my voice eerily calm. Who is she? He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Sophie scrolled further, her frown deepening. Then, suddenly, she froze. Oh my God! Her voice was barely a whisper. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock and something else, something close to horror. You're not going to believe this. She turned the phone toward me again, and there, staring back at me, was a name I recognized instantly. The woman he had been having an affair with, the woman he had planned this with, was his mother's best friend's daughter, the perfect girl, the one his mother had been pushing him toward for years. The woman Susan had always wanted him to marry instead of me. I felt the world tilt sideways. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just manipulation. This was arranged. And Mark had gone along with it. I don't know what snapped inside me at that moment, but something did. Something irrevocable. And when I turned to Mark again, my voice was like steel. You have no idea, I whispered, what you've just done. Mark lunged for his phone, panic flashing his eyes, but Sophie yanked it back with a sneer. Oh no, asshole, she hissed. You're not getting out of this. And as I stood there, holding my daughter close, I knew one thing for certain. Mark had just lost everything. I felt something inside me snap, a sharp, visceral break, like a bone giving way under pressure. My body was still sore from labor, every muscle protesting as I stood, but the adrenaline coursing through me drowned out the pain. Without a word, I shoved the phone against Mark's chest, my fingers trembling with barely contained fury. How long? My voice was eerily calm, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Mark's face was ashen, his lips parting and closing like a fish out of water. It's not what you think. Sophie let out a bitter laugh, cutting him off. Oh, really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you and Mommy Dearest were planning a whole new life, without my sister. Mark's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching in his temple. She wasn't supposed to find out like this. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that scraped against my throat. Not supposed to find out like this? I repeated, my voice rising. So what, Mark? Was I just supposed to wake up one day and realize my husband had stolen my baby and replaced me? He had the audacity to roll his eyes. You're being dramatic. Something in me ignited. Before I could think, I grabbed the birth certificate paperwork from the hospital tray and ripped it in half, the sound tearing through the room like a gunshot. You don't control me. You don't control her. My voice shook with rage, raw and untamed. And then the door swung open. Susan. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, landing first on the shredded paperwork in my hands, then on Mark's phone, still open to the damning messages. For a fraction of a second, she froze. Then her lips curled into a slow, calculated smirk. Well, she said smoothly, stepping inside. I suppose there's no point in pretending now. Sophie let out a sound that was half laugh, half disbelief. Are you serious? You're not even going to deny it. Susan's smirk deepened, and that was the moment I realized she wasn't sorry. This wasn't a mistake. This was her plan all along. I turned to Mark, my chest heaving. You let her do this. Mark swallowed hard, his throat bobbing. He still hadn't said anything, because there was nothing to say. He had betrayed me. Completely. Susan stepped forward, her voice eerily calm, like she was explaining something to a child. Listen, sweetheart. You need to understand, this is what's best for the baby. I tightened my hold on my daughter, her warmth the only thing keeping me grounded. The best thing for my baby is to keep her as far away from you as possible. Susan sighed, as if I were a toddler throwing a tantrum. You don't have the resources to raise her alone. Be realistic. Mark makes more money. He has stability. You don't. Sophie snorted. Oh, shut the hell up. If you think my sister's going to roll over and let you steal her baby, you're dumber than I thought. Susan's gaze flicked to Mark, her voice turning icy. Handle this. And that's when I saw it, hesitation. Mark was wavering. He had spent years under his mother's control, bending to her every demand. But now he was trapped. I leaned in close, my voice a venomous whisper. If you go through with this, I will destroy you. He blinked. You don't. I will take you to court. I will expose everything. Your fake insurance paperwork, your affair, your attempt to steal my child. I will make sure you never see her again. His eyes flicked to Susan, and for the first time, he didn't look sure anymore. Susan saw it too. Mark, she snapped. She's bluffing. We have the lawyers. I stared right into her cold, calculating eyes. Then I guess we'll see who wins. Silence. Then Mark cracked. He turned to his mother, his voice barely a whisper. Mom, I can't do this. Susan stiffened. Excuse me? Mark's hand shook. I didn't think it would get this far. Susan's face twisted with rage. Don't be stupid. We talked about this. Mark looked at me, then at the baby in my arms. He took a step back. I can't, he said again. Susan lost it. After everything I've done for you, you're going to throw it all away for her? Mark flinched. And right then, I knew I had won. Not because Mark had suddenly grown a conscience, but because he was weak. And for once, his mother wasn't the one pulling the strings. Susan stormed out, furious. Mark didn't follow. Sophie was already on the phone with our lawyer cousin, rushing him to the hospital with the nurse's documentation. We legally corrected the paperwork, ensuring I had full custody. Mark didn't fight it. I think, deep down, he knew he had already lost. A few days later, I left the hospital with my daughter. Mark didn't come home with us. And Susan? She tried to contact me. She even showed up at my apartment once, her voice sickly sweet as she begged to talk. I didn't let her in. Sophie called the cops. Eventually, she stopped trying. Mark moved out. I filed for divorce. And as for the other woman, she dumped him the second she realized he had nothing left to offer. It took me a long time to process what had happened, to accept that the man I had loved, the man I had married, had been planning to destroy me. But now, holding my daughter, I knew one thing for sure. I had won, not in some petty, revenge-driven way, not in a way that erased the pain, but I had escaped. And Susan? She had lost. She had tried to build the perfect life for her son, and now she had nothing, and I had everything that mattered.